Everyone, thank you for participating in tonight's Subramaniam. Apologies for the first technical difficulty as folks continue to join the line. We encourage anyone who has a question for the Congressman to please press *3 right now. Again, please press *3 right now to ask a question. If you'd like to subscribe to our email newsletter, you should press *6. You can press both *3 to ask a question and *6 to subscribe to our newsletter. With that, I will pass it over to Congressman Subramaniam, opening remarks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're so sorry about the technical difficulties. This is our first time doing a teletown hall. I've done many in-person town halls, and that's usually my preference. But I wanted to give folks an opportunity who might not be able to either physically or time-wise make it to an in-person town hall, the opportunity to jump on and join one. And so we're doing a teletown hall for the first time. Thanks for being patient with us. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was today in particular is because the Senate right now is debating a bill that the House passed a couple weeks ago. You might know it as the reconciliation bill or the big beautiful bill or the big ugly bill. And it's basically the bill that would, add $2 or $3 trillion to the deficit, cut Medicaid and SNAP, and give substantial tax breaks to large corporations. And in Virginia, that would also mean uncompensated care costs at around $556 million. And, there's a lot going on in the Senate about changing that bill. I haven't seen any changes, though, that would change my mind about it, but I want to hear from you and hear your comments as well about that. The other thing going on is, we obviously found out the president made a decision to, drop bombs on Iranian nuclear sites. He did so without consulting Congress. We were supposed to get a classified briefing a couple of days ago, and that didn't happen. And it looks like there's some conflicting reports from the administration as to the success of those strikes. But we've got a bigger concern about the authority to carry out those strikes. And I think the American people deserve some oversight or say in this process. But in any case, that's going on right now. We want to hear from you, your comments, your questions, and your thoughts, really. And finally, we want to talk about anything else you want to talk about, whether it's DOGE or whether it's, if you're a federal worker, we want to hear your story. We've been doing a lot right now, introduced a lot of bills, co-sponsored a lot of others. I'm the ranking member on the Military and Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm also on the Science and Tech Committee. And I can talk a lot, but we want to hear more about what you want to talk about. So thank you again. I want to just remind you the best ideas and legislation come from you, and, really you help shape some of our priorities and what we do here. So I appreciate you joining the call, and thanks for being patient with us as we work through the technical difficulties. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Please stand by as we collect some questions. Reminder to please press *3 to ask a question and press *6 to subscribe to our newsletter. Please hold.
Right. And while we wait to hear from you, I wanted to also talk about a couple other things going on. I heard from a group today that the State Department plans on laying off a lot of people as well. If you're one of those folks who are concerned about your job there, let us know. We're obviously concerned about the other cuts happening. One of the things I found that's been really effective, though, is when you share your stories and we get some of those stories out in the media or in other ways on the House floor. I speak every day. That actually makes a huge difference. We found that the administration backtracks. So one example was we were having concerns about casework at the IRS, and our team flagged that concern for me, and I did a speech on the House floor about the delays at the IRS, and we actually got casework moving and the cases resolved within a week, or at least appointments. And so you speaking up to us, telling us your stories makes a huge difference. That's the good news. Obviously, the bad news is this is really impacting our community. And so we have a couple things lined up in the future to try to help and try to figure out a plan for our economy, both to save federal jobs as well as prevent agencies from moving out of the area. I've got a bill to do that. And then finally, what's our economy going to look like after, the Trump administration and the damage it has done? But again, want to hear from you more about that.
We just got a question submitted from Anne from Leesburg. She'd like to know, what has the congressman done to fight for federal workers?
Thanks. Yeah, we've done a lot to support the litigation that's happening. It's been very successful. We wrote what's called amicus briefs in support. We've launched over 100 investigations and counting. We've also spent a lot of time not only taking in your stories, but making them famous. And through that, we were able to get a lot of people their jobs back. Now, it's not everyone. We're not guaranteeing we can do that. But what we can do is absolutely make some of these bad Doge mistakes famous. And that's what they call them when they reverse some of these decisions. They call them mistakes. And we even had one former Doge person, he came out recently and said that some of these agencies are actually a lot more efficient than we thought. And they're actually working a lot better than we thought. And he got fired for saying that, but at least now we're starting to see that they're speaking some truth. At least one person is. But another thing we're trying to do is be there for federal workers. And so, whether it's trying to get your job back or trying to help navigate what this economy is going to look like for you, we want to hear about it. And so we're trying to look at next step, working with private employers, bringing them here to Virginia, continuing to spur economic development. But in the meantime, we have to fight every one of these firings. When we do put on the pressure, it works. And we're going to also fight for other things, like keeping the agencies here. When an agency moves, it's really damaging for our economy and for our country and the ability for that agency to serve the American people. And so there's a lot that we're doing right now. And thank you for the question. I appreciate it.
We have our next question from John from Ashburn. He asked, how will services like Medicaid be impacted by the so-called Big Beautiful Bill?
Yeah, the bill is actually going to cut Medicaid or, minimize access to Medicaid for almost 400,000 Virginians. But it's between Medicaid and losses in coverage from changes to the Affordable Care Act. So that's the number. And tens of thousands of kids and I think even 35,000 veterans would lose access to affordable food as well. It's going to raise premiums on all Virginians. So you think about, let's say you're not on Medicaid, right? Well, even if you're not on Medicaid, the hospitals are going to take a huge hit. And we're going to have some rural hospitals closing, most likely. In fact, that's one of the sticking points. That's the reason why the bill is not moving faster in the Senate, is because there's a lot of senators with rural areas in their states that don't want to see their hospitals closed. They're looking at a fund to save hospitals in rural areas, only rural areas. And this will make the hospitals have to increase the charges and on other people who are not on Medicaid, and that means the premiums go up for everyone. And so, by 2034, the uncompensated care costs could rise to $566 million due to loss in coverage. So this would be a huge disaster. And remember, why is this happening? Is so that we can give tax cuts to the very richest corporations who, talked to a few of them, haven't actually asked for them, don't actually need them, right? And so I think that this is backwards. What we should be doing is helping Americans who need it. It's good for everyone. It's good for a country, and it's the right thing to do.
Our next caller is John from Leesburg, another John. Hello, John. You are live with the Congressman.
Question is several. If you are interested in additional suggestions on the air traffic controllers shortage, I have available. I'm sure I don't want to tie everybody's time here. If you are interested, please give me a call. The operator has my phone number. Second, under the Wars Power Act, does the FAA controllers still transfer automatically to DOD? And thirdly, why is not the DOD and the DOT discussing a age restriction exemption for military personnel with 20 years of service? There's additional parts of it, but that's sufficient for me.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. And so, yeah, obviously we're concerned about, really what's become a shortage of air traffic controllers. I just met today with the families of the victims of the DCA crash in January. And one of my concerns are, have we learned our lessons? Have we fixed what was broken in that situation? And, the part of that was we've been having discussions with the DoD on how to prevent and keep our airspace safe moving forward. And the investigation results from that, they're telling us, isn't going to come out until next January. There's a lot of flights that happen in the meantime. So I want people to feel safe when it comes to these flights. As far as the age restrictions, we'll have to look into that. But generally, you make a lot of good points. And what I want to see is to make sure people feel safe in our skies. And we're working actively to do that. And certainly, my end, as the ranking member on Military and Foreign Affairs, I'm trying to work with the DoD to make sure that they're following new protocols. For instance, they're now not going to fly in certain airspace, commercial airspace, so that that part of the issue is resolved. But there's a lot more work to do, and we're working with the families of the victims to try to do that. Many of those families are either from here or the victims were from here in Virginia's 10th District.
We're now going to move to our first poll question. What news outlets do you consume for your news? Dial 1 for CNN, dial 2 for MSNBC, dial 3 for Fox, dial 4 for the New York Times, dial 5 for the Washington Post, and dial 6 for more than one of these. Dial 7 for none of the above. We're going to move on to our next caller who submitted a question. It's Katie from Manassas. How are local businesses impacted by tariffs?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of businesses. Let's take a builder that I met in Percival who said that lumber quotes aren't being held for 30 days anymore like they used to. In fact, they can't hold them for more than a day or two. And so it's increasing the cost of housing at a time when housing is already out of reach for a lot of Americans. I talked to a toy business that said that they relied a lot on trade with China and purchasing things from China, and it's ruining their business. Even government contractors who have a very reliable customer in the federal government now aren't sure they can meet the needs at the price that they signed up for with the federal government because things are more expensive now. In some cases, things have almost doubled. And so tariffs are making everything cost more, especially for small businesses, and things that we have to address this. It's a self-inflicted wound by doing these tariffs. And so, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's your small business, which is already probably, working with thin margins, this is hurting every single American.
We're now going to move on to our next question. Our next caller is Mary from Leesburg. Hello, Mary. You are live with the Congressman.
Yes, good evening, Congressman. Yeah, good evening.
Hey.
I just wanted to, ask a question about, obviously we're all so troubled. Every day there's another, unbelievable thing that happens, and this administration, and causes a lot of stress, and a lot of my friends and neighbors. I mean, we're just, you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't go back to sleep. But I wondered, and other than the protests, which I have been participating in, what can we as constituents do? Because we feel helpless. And, I know you're working hard and, as are other elected officials that can in the Democratic Party. But, I mean, is there anything that we as constituents can do so that we don't feel so helpless with some of these issues, like the vaccines and there's just too many to even enumerate. But
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest, there's days where I feel frustrated and stonewalled and even a little helpless. But then I remember that not only do I have the power to speak up and change things, but so do you. In fact, you have just as much power. And let me be someone who can help you, navigate that power that you have. But we can't be discouraged when we see bad things happen. And the more we speak up, the better the results. And so I've told you a couple of examples. I'll tell you some more. We had veterans who were probationary employees at the VA who lost their job. We spoke up about it. We got articles in the paper. Other members got articles in the paper. And within a week, those stories were heard by this administration, and they reversed course on many of those firings. Not all, but many of them. And I can just tell you story after story about times where instead of, being, feeling defeated and not doing anything, people spoke up and spoke out, and this administration felt the pressure. Even on immigration, we saw they brought back Kilmore and Brago eventually. We kept putting the pressure. We said, we're not going to accept this. They're bringing other people back from El Salvador. We said, this is a bright line. We're not going to accept this. This is unconstitutional. And that worked. And so keep speaking up about it. And never feel like you don't have a voice, because you do. Even in a time like this, I'm on the wrong side of a trifecta, but it doesn't matter. I go to the House floor every day, and I talk about what's going on in our community, good things and bad things. I don't just talk about the bad things, but we have to talk about what's going on. And when they flood the zone at us, we flood it back.
Our next caller is Barbara from Midland. Hello, Barbara. You're live with the Congressman.
Hello. Thank you very much, Congressman, for being here with us this evening. And thank you very much for your hard work. I know it can't be for the faint of heart up there, for everything that you do. My question is, if any consideration was being given to limit the production or the development of data centers in our jurisdiction. I think that there's environmental impact as well as there could be an impact on citizens' utility bills, and so that's a concern.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And in general, my biggest concern, there's a lot of concerns I have with the data center development in our region. I spoke up at a hearing about a month or two ago about this, but I'll run through them. Basically, one, it's leading to higher utility bill costs because we're building the energy infrastructure for the data centers. One of the reasons the data centers are coming here is because we are subsidizing their energy, and that means higher costs on our utility bills. The second thing that's happening is it's leading to an impact on our environment that we cannot reverse, and that's really concerning. We also have clean energy goals in Virginia, and building power infrastructure to coal country in West Virginia is not going to help. It's going to hurt us a lot. And so I'd like to see, I know there's some data centers that are working hard, though, on this front, but then, the actual infrastructure is going through making power lines go through schools, communities, and through beautiful green lands. And so I really don't want to see that happen as well. And, overall, and I apologize, that's our voting buzzer. And so there's stuff going on the floor. But overall, the development of data centers, also security concerns too, we haven't talked about. I want to make sure that, I know we need data centers long term for some of the technologies that are coming up. We're already here, but we shouldn't be building them all in our community. I mean, that's just not sustainable for us. The number of data centers here is more than the power they take up is more than all of Washington, D.C., and we're planning to double the number of data centers. And I don't think that's sustainable, and that's not good for our community.
All right, our next question is from Layla from Manassas. Hello, Layla, you're live with the Congressman.
Hi.
Hi, Layla.
This is my first town hall, but I just wanted to hear your reason for tabling the recent impeachment resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I mean, so let me give you some context. The Republicans actually ended up bringing that to the floor. They couldn't wait for that vote because they knew that it wasn't going to divide them. No Republican felt that this was an impeachable offense. And Democrats were split not on whether it was an impeachable offense, but whether this was the right tactic at the right time. The impeachment was never going to be successful, and that resolution did not set up a framework for actually having a real conversation about what happened and whether it was impeachable. Instead, it went straight to impeachment. And so I know, I would love more than anyone else for Donald Trump to leave office. Trust me. But this is partially tactical and partially the fact that I want to make sure that when we do actually do impeachment, it's for the most egregious offense that even Republicans would agree, or some Republicans would agree, is impeachable. I'm a little concerned that Republicans are also blindly following the president at this point, and whether he could do the worst possible thing. You look at January 6th and the aftermath of that. A lot of Republicans still with this president, and so. But with that said, I think that one of the reasons we as a caucus decided that this was not the right time for impeachment was because we feel like we want to make sure that when we do impeachment, it's the right time, the right reason, and it's an approach where we can actually be successful.
Our next caller is Amy from Clifton. Hello, Amy. You are live with the Congressman.
Hi. Nice to meet you via telephone. This is also my first time attending a town hall, but I wanted to know what Congress is doing to combat ICE terrorizing communities, and specifically wearing masks, not identifying themselves, when we just had someone impersonating an officer kill two members or two elected officials. So it's, and obviously we've all seen the videos going around across the country, and people not receiving due process, just taking people off the street. So what is Congress doing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So let me tell you about the bad stuff that's happening. We've got an administration that admittedly internally has not done a good job when it comes to immigration, even immigration enforcement. And so it's trying to notch up some deportation victories by trying to take innocent people off the streets with masks, by ICE officials wearing masks. And they're going to residential areas, they're going into businesses, they're even trying to get into schools and take kids. And that's, they told us that they were going to go after criminals and keep us safe, but that's not what's happening. And they're going after law-abiding citizens. We even had one resident of Manassas who is a citizen, who was even a Trump voter, who was actually stopped and almost detained because, frankly, he looked Hispanic. And so that's what's going on. And then on top of that, we have in Loudoun County, we have the 270G program happening right now, where basically law enforcement is being told to be mini ICE enforcement officers as well. And they did this in Prince William County, as somebody from Prince William may know, and it was a complete disaster. And so, if we want to continue, if this administration continues on this path, it's not going to be good for anyone. Just think about all the things that immigrants have done for our community. A lot of people are also saying that documented immigrants who are permanent residents on green cards, I hear from them all the time, are fearful of traveling right now. They're fearful of saying anything publicly because they know that their right to due process and free speech is being infringed upon. We've had many immigrants who are permanent residents who are detained because they spoke up on an issue and it was in opposition to what the president felt. And so, what is Congress doing? Unfortunately, this administration is doing nothing, and this Congress follows whatever this administration does. And so, what I'm trying to do is call out all the bad behavior, make all these cases famous, and most of all, try to restore some sense of sanity in our community when it comes to this. But it's going to be a long road. If you hear of any raids, if you hear of any stories, please reach out and share them with us too. And I'll go, anywhere I can and talk about this. And it's bad if even Joe Rogan is criticizing this administration on their immigration enforcement. And But again, the way we get results is to put the pressure on. I remember when Kelmar Abrego's case came up, and he was sent to a gulag in El Salvador. A lot of people spoke up about that, and that made a big difference. And now he's back. They're still harassing him. They're still pressing charges. I don't know if he's a criminal, honestly. It didn't matter at the time. People shouldn't be picked off the streets and without any ability to say that they're, that they didn't commit the crime or know what their crime was or ability to prove that they're here documented. They should have that right to have their day in court. And he did not. Many others have not. And we need to call that out. So thank you for the question.
Our next caller is Jackie from Leesburg. Hello, Jackie. You are live with the Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking my call. This is something that isn't talked about much right now simply because there's so many, huge issues going on. But as an example, I have 2 adult children who currently live in Virginia but out of the area who want to return home to be closer to family. And they both have jobs where they work full-time. So I have kind of 2 questions. One is that neither one of them can find anything affordable anywhere near us. And the other is that since when does it become okay, maybe I'm just not aware, to have a full-time job but have no benefits? Like be guaranteed 35, 40 hours a week but have no benefits. I don't know. When did that become okay?
Yeah, no, those are good questions. I mean, on affordability, whether you're in Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, even Fauquier and Rappahannock, it's becoming less and less affordable to live in this region. And it's especially hard for senior citizens. It's especially hard for younger folks. When I say young, I mean under 30, really. A lot of folks have to live with their parents if they live in the region, or they have to figure out a way, or they have to live in West Virginia. And I meet a lot of teachers and folks who work in our community who have to live in West Virginia. I think that's a shame. I think folks who work in our community should be a part of our community, especially our teachers. So, this is something that needs collaboration between at the local level, state level, and federal level. I'm putting out a package of legislation soon to tackle housing in particular, because that's a huge issue. Even the businesses in our community have noted that they have trouble hiring because housing is so expensive. And then we're trying to, obviously, I brought it up earlier, but the tariffs are really increasing prices. We already had inflation, and inflation was cooling, and then now we put tariffs on top of that. So we need to make things more affordable, and we've got another package of legislation to address that too. But the reality is some of this involves reversing course on some of this administration's policies, like tariffs, and taking away, talk about benefits, taking away people's access to Medicaid, creating more burdensome processes and paperwork to access the benefits that the federal government affords to them is just going to make things worse. So if your employer is not going to give you access to benefits, well, you have to get it through the marketplace or on Medicaid. And what this big bill coming up wants to do is basically make it harder for you to access those benefits, or make it impossible for some people, and that would be harmful to everyone in our community.
Our next caller is Gabriel. Gabriel, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, good afternoon, Congressman. Thank you for doing this.
Of course.
My question was going to be about education. So I am making a career change to becoming a full-time teacher and I'm in my 50s, and I'm deeply, deeply concerned about the future of funding for education, public education in particular. And I'm really concerned about what can be done to impede or even stop the big, beautiful bill and the clear cutting they're going to be doing to educational funding. And also at the same time, with the presidential order that said English is to be the language of the United States, why we can't use that as leverage to get money so that citizens of the United States have better education so they can speak and read better English and be more employable.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm deeply concerned about the plan to get rid of the Department of Education. This administration swore that Project 2025 wasn't its agenda when Trump, the candidate, was running. And I actually asked yesterday one of the authors of Project 2025 whether it was in fact their agenda. He said, yes, of course it is. And so getting rid of the Department of Education is a big part of that. Why is that important? Well, now we're already starting to hear from constituents who are having problems with their student loans, for instance. So access to higher education is getting worse. We're starting to see deep cuts to federal contributions to different programs. There are proposals to cut Head Start, for instance, proposals to cut a lot of programs, federal programs that help fund people in our schools. And, the list keeps going. And so I'm trying to see what I can do to back channel some of these concerns. I know it's on the Senate side, the people that have the most leverage are some of the senators who are on the fence. A lot of them are talking about the rural hospitals and healthcare. I haven't seen this be as big an issue, and I'd like it to be more of one. And so, again, we need to make it an issue for them. We need to speak up. In the end, if these cuts go through, I'm going to ask my colleagues at the state and local level whether they can help pick up the slack. But that is putting a lot of pressure on our school systems and, in our communities. I know those of you who live in Rappahannock and Fauquier know that the state funding formulas are not kind to your areas, and that we already need the state to chip in a little bit more. And now, on top of it, is going to really hurt a lot of schools and all communities. And so it's definitely a high priority.
Our next caller is Shivahi from Bremerton. Hello, Shivahi. You are live with the Congressman.
Hi. Hi, good evening.
Hi, Shivahi.
Shivaji.
Good evening.
Hi. I have two ultra-rare disease kits in home, and I heard that, NIH is cutting the funds, and it's affecting their research work. So I was wondering what is the status of, that they're really cutting or they're funding, or what's going on with the NIH part of it?
Yeah, the latest right now is that a federal judge just blocked some of the cuts to NIH grants, and the DOJ was saying that the grants were unlawful, and they canceled them because they were DEI initiatives, which was not true. And so, the federal judge blocked that. I think that could, that federal judge was in Massachusetts. That could go up to the Supreme Court. I could see that happening. But so far, at least some of the cuts were blocked, but, they're firing people at NIH. They're trying to cut as many programs and projects as possible. This is going to affect a lot of people. These are cuts that we'll never know the things that we would have lost out on, the cancers we would have cured, the diseases we would have been able to address. And I think it's a real shame because even a dollar invested in NIH has returns in the multiples. And so you talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. The NIH funding is the opposite. NIH grants are one of the best investments we can make as a country, and our investments in science and technology over the decades in the past have been some of the best money we've ever spent, and made us one of the reasons we are a power in this globe is because of our science and technology expertise, thanks to this funding. So thank you for the question, and I hope things work out for your kids.
Our next caller is Shanta from Haymarket. Hello, Shanta. You are live with the Congressman.
Yes, hi. My question is there anything that we can do as citizens in partnership with your office, of course, to help to apply the pressure? Because I know one person, cannot achieve as much as many.
Yeah, no, thank you. If you want to, if you have any specific sort of stories that you're hearing or any sort of intelligence or feedback, please share it with our office. Especially things happening with this administration. I encourage you and everyone to follow us on social media. And if you see something that you think applies to you or your neighbors or something interesting, to share that message with others. The more we can amplify our messages, the better. and that's very helpful to us. Also, if you hear misinformation, especially, right now, the way people are getting information is really skewed. We have our own silos. Some people don't always get the truth. Just finding that misinformation and flagging it for us or responding to it yourself, I think is really helpful. And so there's a lot of ways, but, tell your neighbors, call your neighbors, and certainly, try to do what you can. And we'll have lots of ideas for you. Feel free to reach out to our office in particular. So thank you.
Our next caller is Sharon from Sterling. Sharon, you are live with the Congressman.
Oh, hi. Thank you for this. Yeah. Thank you for this call. It's really great. If you could tell us a little bit about, I know you already answered this question about ICE and what's going on with ICE and people getting, arrested and things and what you're going to be doing about it. But do you have any personal stories you've actually interacted with in the community?
Yeah, the one that really stands out. I know that I've talked to members of school boards in the counties in our area who have said ICE has tried to come to their schools, but that they have not let them into the schools or plan to let them into the schools. But so far, that hasn't been a widespread issue, but I know ICE is trying to go into schools, for instance. I know there was an issue outside an immigration court in Sterling. I think it happened last week or a couple weeks ago where about 10 people were detained. They were, trying to, arrest people. I spoke up about that as well. Most of the ICE officers who were there were wearing masks as well. And so, we've got lots of, we've heard of tactical ICE units being deployed this past weekend all over Northern Virginia. And I think please, if you hear of anything, please let our office know, first of all. The stories we hear, we've shared publicly. The second is, if you're from an immigrant family or an immigrant, just know your rights as well, and know that what they can and can't do. And third, we're going to continue advocating. In the end, what I've found is that, this majority in Congress does not seem to be bothered at all by ICE's actions, but that doesn't mean, I think this goes past just the rights of immigrants. It's the rights of every American, really, because if they can come for an immigrant family without any sort of, ability for that family to have their day in court and speak up and defend themselves. They'll come for Americans next. In other countries, they came for journalists, they came for political opponents, and that's a step towards authoritarianism, I think. If this keeps going and we let some of the illegal stuff happen, like the deportations to El Salvador, for instance. And so continue speaking up about it, and we haven't heard as much when it comes to specific incidents of ICE, except for what we've heard in the news or what people have told us directly, and the more stories, the better. So thank you for the question.
Our next caller is Wayne. Wayne, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Wayne. It looks like Wayne may have dropped off. We'll go to the next question.
While we wait for Wayne to get back on, we're going to move to Henry from Remington. Henry, you are live with the Congressman.
Congressman, I have a question about streamlining Medicaid for individuals who need it. I'm trying to get my wife on Medicaid. She has dementia, and the questions are, personal and lengthy. And I was wondering how you can streamline it for people so they can get their benefits. She's already on Medicare.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got lots of ideas on how to streamline Medicaid. I mean, first, I think accepting all application methods, whether it's an online application or in person or by phone and, via mail, I think even online, we should allow that to happen. And that would really help streamline the application process. There's a lot of unnecessary reviews, in my opinion, when it comes to Medicaid that are really burdensome and take up staff time and take up a lot of money as well. And so we could save a little money through some of these unnecessary interviews, for instance. We can also simplify documentation, reduce paperwork. Unfortunately, what the big bill does, the big ugly bill does, is actually increase the amount of paperwork with this. And the reason for that is they want people kicked off Medicaid so that they can say that, oh, yeah, you didn't redo your really burdensome paperwork, and so we're kicking you off Medicaid and you can't get back on. And so that way they can cut the number of people on Medicaid, not just the amount of Medicaid benefits that people receive. And so it's a sneaky way of cutting Medicaid, but it's going to lead to millions of people getting cut from the program, and then they can say it's their fault. One thing, it wasn't part of the question that I want to address, though, is you're going to hear some people say that, the cuts to Medicaid are only to undocumented immigrants. That's not true. There's actually no undocumented immigrants enrolled in Medicaid. They don't allow undocumented immigrants to enroll in Medicaid altogether. So when we say that millions are going to lose their access to Medicaid, we're talking about you or American citizens. And if you're not sure, if you're someone who's not on Medicaid and you wonder who's on Medicaid, you probably ask your neighbors. There's a good chance that someone in your cul-de-sac on your street has some form of a Medicaid benefit. And it's a program we need to protect and make better, as you mentioned, not make worse, which is what's being proposed.
Our next caller is Jeffrey from Leesburg. Jeffrey, you're live with the Congressman.
Hello, Congressman. I would like to thank you for your service and what you are doing for our country, and thank you for taking my question. I'd like to agree with you on the topic of impeachment of the president at this point in time. In my personal opinion, that kind of dialogue is just silliness. But that said, this current administration and this president is an utter abomination. But the simple fact of the matter is that this is what America elected. So I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, what should we as Democrats or the opposition to the Trump-Vance administration, what should we be doing as we look forward to the next upcoming elections?
Sure. I'll just say I know a lot of folks, including folks in our community, who voted for Democrats their entire life and didn't vote for Democrats this past cycle, including me. They didn't vote for me. And one of the things they cited is that they thought, they really liked the platform of Donald Trump, and they thought he was going to put an end to all wars. They thought he was going to lower costs, and they thought that he was not about Project 2025. He was actually, he had nothing to do with Project 2025. He was someone who was going to create a golden age of America, a booming economy, and get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. That sounds really nice, actually. I want an end to all wars, too. I want lower costs. I want a booming economy. It sounds great to me, but none of that has happened. And so the reason it hasn't happened is specifically because of the president's policies. He's been a weak negotiator abroad, but he's played the role of a strong communicator and strong negotiator, but really what he's done is create problems and then look like he's trying to solve them. He implemented tariffs, and he implemented a lot of uncertainty in the markets, and that's led to an economy that's hurting for everyday Americans. And he didn't put an end to all wars. He, has created more wars, in fact. And so I think people, I think my job, and if you agree with me, is to just talk about what's going on with this administration and in D.C., how it's affecting everyday Americans, and that the economic conditions in our community isn't because immigrants and trans people did this to you. It's because of the policies of this president. And so, but that's easier said than done. And so it's what I try to do every day, and also talk about what I would do and what I want to do, and try to actually get things done and push legislation forward. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and I think it's something worth noting as we try to figure out how to address the problems with this administration.
Our next caller is Patricia from Manassas. Patricia, you're live with the Congressman.
Hello, Congressman. So happy to talk to you this evening.
You too.
My question is about this big, ugly bill. And it's unfortunate of what they're trying to do with Medicaid and education and NIH. But also, I'm wondering why there's no emphasis that's being placed on the judicial side of what they're trying to do, which inevitably will make him king. They're trying to, and that's a part of Project 25 as well, where he's going to be able to supersede the courts and that sort of thing. So why aren't Democratic congressmen bringing that to the forefront about this bill? And what do you think can be done about that? I know it's over on the Senate side and Congress passed it, but it's ugly. I mean, if you really delve into it, it's saying that, basically he can do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah. So what happened was the president issued a ton of executive orders at the beginning of this administration, and then the courts basically ruled many of them unconstitutional, rightfully so. Give an example: birthright citizenship was clear as day in the Constitution, and he did an executive order saying that he's going to get rid of birthright citizenship, and the courts ruled it unconstitutional. But then he decided, and this administration decided, that they didn't like the rulings of these courts, and so they called them rogue judges, and then they decided that they're going to try to come up with a bill that would basically make it impossible for federal courts to put a hold on any executive order that they deem unconstitutional until there's a full set of litigation and a conclusion. And so they're trying to take away that ability to put those holds, called temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions. And that would be unprecedented. I've never seen that happen. And, I think long term, we need to respect the separation of powers. They're there for a reason. And this administration has infringed on the courts. He's infringed on Congress's rights, Congress's power of the purse, Congress's war powers. And this is really serious. And this is why we need to speak up about this. Again, this is the type of thing, you're right, that we need to talk about. We debated this particular provision. I went to the House floor during the debate and brought this up and made this a point during this bill because you're right, this is important, and we want our democratic institutions to remain in place. We want free and fair elections. We want separation of powers. Thank you.
Our next caller is Rosemarie from Warrenton. Rosemarie, you're live with the Congressman.
Hi, Congressman. I'm sorry for the delay. I'm very distressed over this administration. It's not new. We had the same thing when he was president before. But most of the things that I wanted to say, other people have said before me, so I won't regurgitate them. But I am very distressed that the Democratic leadership is almost non-existent. And I think they're playing softball when they should be playing hardball. And I wonder what you and the other younger Democrat leaders are doing about doing something to rein Trump in. I totally disagree with just about everything he's doing. And I think somebody needs to do something to stop him before he destroys our country.
It looks like I was on mute. I apologize for that. Happens all the time. But anyway, it's a great question. I mean, sometimes it can be frustrating. It can be difficult. And what I say is, let's lead ourselves. Let's not wait for someone else's leadership. Right now, there's no natural leader in a particular party like the Democratic Party. But what we can do is do everything we can to lead our community. And one of the things, I'll give you a couple examples. Yesterday we had a hearing on DOGE, and I'm not even on that committee, and I decided to jump on that committee myself and speak up about how it's impacting our community and hurting every single American. And then I moved with other folks on that committee to subpoena DOGE folks, including Elon Musk, to come testify about DOGE on behalf and answer our questions. And it disrupted the hearing, and Republicans who were off at maybe fundraisers or doing other things had to scramble back to vote against that proposal to subpoena those folks. But we have to figure out ways to stop the train, and we have to stop the bad things from happening to our community, and part of it is just using every tool we can and coming up with new ways to stop the bad things that are happening coming from this administration. But we should not wait for the leadership of someone in particular. Let's all try to figure out ways that we can contribute and help as we try to stop the bad things and move this country forward.
Our next question is from Arlene from Manassas. Hello, Arlene. You're live with the Congressman.
Hello. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to let you know I am a Department of the Army civilian, and I've spoken a couple of times at your town halls, but we had finally finished with our 5 bullet points, and our last exercise was to provide one sentence in what is wrong and how to fix it, which is impossible to do in one sentence. But my question to them, or comment to whoever, the IA God, or AI God, was there are a lot of programs that have been cut. The organization I work for is a Science and Technology Research and Development organization that supports the Army and the Marines and the Air Force, and they just had said, no, we're not going to fund this program anymore, after it had been worked on for many years and was doing well, and instead now is focusing on this wonderful Golden Dome that no one knows about. So I'm just wondering if you have any idea whatsoever if the information that they've been accumulating with these last exercise by OPM or DOD, if that's actually being looked at, because cutting programs is it's really freaking stupid. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, so from what I've learned, the 5 things every week, plus your one-sentence summary of what's wrong, they're using really clunky AI to then go through that, as well as any other data and information that's been shared with them to find what they deem are cuts. What they're looking for is not waste, fraud, and abuse. They're looking for terms like equity, equality, women, and other terms that they deem as not fitting with the president's agenda or ideology, and then they're looking to cut those programs. And so, an example is there's a program for women veterans that they're looking to cut because they think it's DEI. I've heard of other cuts like that. There was a program, someone came to my office today talking about a program about human rights in the State Department that they're looking to cut because that's not part of the ideology. So just remember that when you're writing your statements and your 5 things, that they're looking at ideology, not about waste, fraud, and abuse. And hopefully you can craft that in a way. I also want to hear about things that happen at your agency, so please keep us in touch. And thank you for your service to our country. So I appreciate it. I'm going to hand it over to Gabby now to help close us out. Unfortunately, we started about 15 minutes late, and so we ended 15 minutes late because of that. But we had 400 questions, and so we couldn't get to them all. I tried to also include questions that weren't just nice to me, were critical, and we'll try to get around to as many questions as we can in the future, and offline also take your questions into consideration. I think we have a little time though. Can we try? Yeah, let's try one more question.
Okay, everyone, we have time for one more question, but for anyone who hasn't had a chance to ask their question, like the Congressman said, please don't hang up. There'll be an opportunity for you to record your question at the end of the call so our office can get back to you. Our last question is from Natasha from Bealton. Natasha, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you so much for doing the town hall. This is my first town hall, so my kids are in the car and they look up to you a lot. I wanted to say that I'm a small business owner and I am a single mom, and I have noticed that my service-oriented business of like a mobile veterinary service has been affected by the DOGE cut. And I've had clients cancel, and I've seen a direct impact to my bottom line. And I was wondering if there's any possibility for the DOGE to be undoged. Is there a reversal that is ever going to be possible, or is it kind of what's done is done forever?
Yes. So 2 things. One, that hearing I was talking about DOGE yesterday was meant to try to pave the way for them to put DOGE into statute, to pass a bill that be signed into law, making DOGE permanent. And so that's the goal of this Republican majority in Congress, is to make DOGE permanent. And obviously, we don't want that to happen. So let's start there. We don't want to make it permanent, right? Now, how do we reverse it? One is to talk about the bad cuts and how it's going to impact not just the federal workers here in our area. Obviously, we know that. But what we want to do is talk about how great the work that you do is for the American people. So whether it's your business that works tangentially with the federal government, whether it's people working in the federal government like the woman earlier, we want to tell the stories about the great things that are happening with the work that you do and how it affects and impacts and helps the American people. And finally, we're going to do everything we can to slow down some of these cuts and some of these firings too. It's a lot of the tactics I was talking about earlier, the way we're going to do that. And so, thank you for what you're doing. Say thank you to your kids, and they should come to the office sometime if they're ever in D.C. So I think that is our last question, unfortunately. I want to thank you all for coming. Again, we had over 400 questions, so we couldn't get to them all. But we've responded to, I think, tens of thousands of emails and calls at this point to our office. So feel free to reach out to our office if we didn't get to your question. And, finally, please write into us as well, just generally. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your feedback and your comments too. And come visit our office in D.C. as well. It's not too far away from our district. So I hope to see all of you in person. We'll do more of these town halls if you liked it, but let me know if you liked the town hall, the teletown hall format. Obviously, it's not going to take the place of in person, but I was thinking this might be an easy way to do it while things are a little bit hectic in D.C. and I can't get back for in-person town hall during the session. So I'm going to hand it over to Gabby now to close us out.
Everyone, that concludes our telephone town hall tonight with the Congressman. If you'd like to stay up to date on his work, please follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rep. Suhas. Finally, if you'd like to subscribe to our e-newsletter, please just stay on the line, leave your name and email address after the tone. Thank you. Have a good evening.